Hey everyone, so I'm going to do a review sheet video for your review for test 4 of this quarter. Alright, so the first question says, the solution to the equation 18x squared minus 24x plus 87 is. Now this is multiple choice, and I want you to do is analyze the choices. You can note there's an I in some of them. Actually, there's an I in all of them, so we know we're going to get an imaginary number out. And you can also notice that there is a square root. So because of that, there's only really two options to solve for this. There's no factoring that could possibly break this up, like not AM, not the glasses, it's not going to work. So we're going to have to use either the quadratic formula, that's what I would use, or complete the square. I'm going to use the quadratic formula in this case. Your A value is next to the x squared, your B value is next to the x, and the C is here. So in my case here, I have A as 18, B is negative 24, and your C value is 87. So I'm going to plug that into my quadratic formula, which is given to you on the regions. There's a negative already in the problem, so I'm going to have a negative 24 plus or minus the square root. I want b squared minus 4ac. So because I want b squared, I'm going to put negative 24 in parentheses because I want the whole thing squared. Minus 4. My a value is 18, so times 18, and my C value is 87. Alright, all over 2 times 18. So now I'm going to try to simplify this. This would become a positive and a positive. That gets you 24, plus or minus, all over 2 times 18 is 36. What you want to do is find out what's inside of the square root. What you do is you plug this into your calculator, make sure there are parentheses around the negative 24, and when you do that, you will see you get an answer of negative 5,688. Okay. Now, this number is massive. It's really big. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to look at the choices to kind of get an idea of what number can go into 5,688 to reduce the square root. And if you notice, inside of all the choices, you have 158. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide 158 with negative 5,688. When you do that, when you divide negative 5,688 by 158, when you divide that by 158, you get 36, which is awesome because that's a perfect square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into the square root of negative 1 because it's negative, the square root of 36, and the square root of 158. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simplify. So I'm going to keep the 24 plus or minus. The negative 1 will come out as I, the 36 will come out as a 6, and the 158 will stay inside, all over 36. Now, if you notice, right at this point, we could probably cross off two answers. The two answers I can cross off at this point are answers 1 and 2 because they have a negative in the first spot, and we want a positive in the first spot. If you notice, the 24 is positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up with the heart, and I'm going to break it up and write it separately. The reason why I'm writing it separately is because if you look at the choices, they have two separate things, not one fraction. So I'm going to have 24 over 36 plus or minus 6i over 36 square root of 158. Alright, if you type in 24 over 36 in your calculator and then press math and then press fraction, it will reduce the fraction to 2/3. Plus or minus, this will become a 1, that'll become a 6, so it's 1/6 I square root of 158. And that gives you choice 4 as your answer. The next question says, which equation represents a parabola with a focus at 0, -1, and a directrix at y equals 1. So my focus is at 0, -1, which means my x value is 0, my y value is -1. So my focus is 0, -1, which is right down here. So I'm going to make F. My directrix is at y equals 1. Y equals is a horizontal line, and there we go. That's y equals 1, and that's my directrix. Now, I need to find my vertex in order to find the equation of my parabola. My vertex lives perfectly halfway between the directrix and the focus, and this one's pretty easy. It's right at the origin, at 0, 0, meaning that my vertex is 0, 0. Now, because this parabola is downward, I'm going to be using the equation x minus h squared equals negative 4a y minus k. H and k are the vertex, so it's going to be x minus 0 squared equals negative 4. The a value is going to be 1 in this case because the distance from here to here is 1, and there to there is also 1. So that's 1, and then y minus 0 as well. Cleaning this up, x minus 0 is just x, and then square it. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4, and y minus 0 is just y. So if you look at this, your answer is not in y equals form. If you look at the choices, it's simply choice 2. The next question says, for the polynomial, list each real zero and its multiplicity and to determine whether the graph crosses or touches the x-axis at each x-intercept. So let's figure out the zeros. So I'm going to rewrite this. When you're trying to figure out the zeros, you're setting your equation equal to 0, and you're breaking each piece up equal to 0. So 5 equals 0. Well, that can't happen. What the 5 is actually just creating a vertical stretch on the graph, so 5 is just changing the shape. It's not a 0 at all because of this little fact here. That can't ever happen. With these two, though, we're going to set them both equal to 0, ignoring the exponents. So I have x equals negative 1, and those exponents are your multiplicities. This is a multiplicity of 3. Remember, multiplicity is how often that answer occurs. So literally you would be able to expand this piece, x plus 1, 3 times, getting 3x equals negative 1. So that's why we say multiplicity of 3. And then for this piece, I'm going to set x minus 3 equal to 0, add the 3, and I'll get x equals 3, positive 3. And that tells me my multiplicity is 4 because I have an exponent of 4. So looking at my choices, I can cross off choices 1 and 2 because we already decided that they do not, there's no 5 in your answer. It does not exist. You can't have 5 equals 0. Now I'm down to negative 1 multiplicity of 3, crossing or touching. So the only difference between these two is if it crosses or touches. Now if you remember, I told you even touches, odd crosses. What I'm talking about is the multiplicity. So this is an even multiplicity, so it's going to touch at 3, and this is an odd multiplicity, so it's going to cross. We're talking about the multiplicities again. So I'm going to have choice 3 because it's an odd multiplicity, which means I cross, and the 3 has an even multiplicity, which means I touch. The equation 3x squared plus 12x plus 3y squared plus 66y equals 24 is equivalent to. Now, if you look at all the choices, they all have the same left side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand them. X plus 2, x plus 2, plus 3, y plus 11, y plus 11 equals, we know 24 has to be there because it's here. Now there are two ways to do this problem. I'm going to do it this way first, and then I will show you the other way to do it. So what you're going to do is you're going to box method this inside piece. So you would get x squared plus 4x plus 4 if you box method that. Plus 3y squared plus 22y plus 121 equals 24. Now, you would do box method to get that result. And if you look at the original in the problem, you should notice that there's a 3 next to the x squared and a 12 next to the x. This makes sense because I have a 3 outside here, and if I was to distribute the 3, I would get 3x squared plus 12x plus 12. So this 12 is what's been added. So because that's what's been added, this 12, I'm going to add that 12 to the 24. I'm going to do the same thing here. If I distribute this in, I have 3y squared plus 66y plus 362. That 363. 3 times 121 is 363. That 363 is what is added on this side, so I'm going to add that to here. If you add up the right side, 24 plus 12 plus 363, you'll end up with 399, which is your final answer of choice 3. Now, the second way to do this problem is to complete the square. The reason why you can complete the square with this is if you look at the choices, you should see that they have these x plus 2 and y plus 11 all squared. So, like, theoretically, this is 3x plus 2 times x plus 2 plus 3 y plus 11 times y plus 11. And we know 24 is on this side for sure, but if you notice, if you multiplied this out, you'd get the trinomial like how we got it down here. So there is something that needs to be added over here. What they did was they took this, pulled out a GCF from the x's, so you get x squared plus 4x. I'm going to leave a blank there, and then they pull a GCF out for the y's. They only took out the number, though. Okay. We're going to put blanks in here because that's the whole idea of completing the square, 24, and then we'll have 2 blanks over here. So to get that trinomial that's the same, well, binomial and binomial at the same, you need a trinomial, a perfect square trinomial. To do that, you complete the square. So 4 divided by 2, you take your b value and then square it. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Square that, you get 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Now, right there is a mistake because it's not just 4 that gets added to this side. It's whatever you distribute in with the 3. So really what I'm adding here is a 12. Okay, and I'm going to also take the b term, divide it by 2, and square it. That'll get you 11 squared, which is 121. You're not adding 121, but a 363 over here. If you add these all up, you'll also get your answer of 399. Okay, for the next question it says, find a polynomial function that has the given zeros and multiplicities, and then find the degree of your polynomial. The first thing is you want to give your polynomial a name, so we're going to give it p of x. We know all of these are our zeros, meaning x equals 8 is a 0, x equals 5 is a 0, x equals negative 3 is a 0, and x equals negative 1 is a 0. We want to put that into a polynomial, which means that you have to bring them back to the x. To do that, you just do the opposite sign. So I'll have x minus 8. Your multiplicity is the power, because that's how many x minus 8s you've had. X equals 8 is an answer that's happening 5 times, meaning that if you factored it out with the parentheses, you'd have 5 parentheses of x minus 8. And you do the same thing for all of these. So it would be x minus 5, and that's going to be to the third. And then this one will be x plus 3, and that'll be to the fourth because of the multiplicities. And this is x plus 1, and this will be squared. So that's my polynomial. So the next question says, what is the degree of your polynomial? To find that degree, you just sum up the multiplicities, and when you add 5 plus 3 plus 4 plus 2, you get a degree of 14. The next question says, solve the equation x cubed plus 3x squared minus 4x minus 12 equals 0 algebraically for all values of x. So what you're going to do is realize that this polynomial is 4 terms. When you solve for an equation, the best thing to do is to try to factor. When you have 4 terms, you try to split it down the middle and factor by grouping. With this one, if you look at the left, you can pull out x squared and be left with x plus 3. And when you look at the right, you want x plus 3 as well. What you would take out would be a negative 4 in order to make this become x plus 3 and change the signs. Because when you divide by negative 4, that becomes positive, and that becomes positive, and a 3. Alright, so now this is your binomial GCF. You will take that out and be left with x plus 3, parentheses x squared minus 4, equals 0. You're going to ask yourself, can you factor further? And you can with the right one, that is dots. So now I have 3 possible values for x. Set each piece equal to 0, and solve for x by subtracting 3. So one of my answers is x equals negative 3. Subtracting 2, so my other answer is x equals negative 2, and adding 2, and x equals 2. So your answers are in set notation, negative 3, negative 2, and 2. The next question says, given the equation x squared minus 2x plus 10 equals 0, verify that 1 minus 3r is a solution of this equation and explain how you verified. Now, if 1 minus 3r is a solution, that is an x value. And that's actually potentially where you would cross the x-axis. But because this is an imaginary solution, you wouldn't cross the x-axis. All your solution would do for you is make the equation equal to 0. So in order to verify that it is a solution, you're going to replace x with 1 minus 3i. So I'm going to plug in 1 minus 3i into my values of x, and I'm going to type this whole left side into my calculator, and I'll end up getting 0 equals 0. So the explanation of how you verified is you can say I substituted 1 minus 3i in for x to see if it gave me 0. Okay, the next question says, suppose that a company's profit is given by P of x equals negative 2x squared plus 360x. How many items must be produced and sold so that the profit will be at least 16,000? This is a key term here. That means greater than or equal to. At least means that or more. So I'm going to take my equation and make negative 2x squared plus 360x and make it greater than or equal to 16,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to realize that x squared likes to be positive and equal to 0. So in order to do that, I'm going to bring it to the right side of this equation, moving everything over in order to make it equal to 0. So for now, I'm going to ignore the inequality sign and make it equal to and write it as 2x squared minus 360x plus 1,600. 16,000, I'm sorry. Okay, so now in order to solve this, you're going to try to factor. The first thing you want to look out for is a GCF, and there is a GCF, it's 2. If you pull out a 2, you'll get x squared minus 180x plus 8,000 equals 0. This 2 really means nothing, it's just a coefficient. What we're really concerned about is this piece right here and seeing if we can factor it. The only type of factoring you would be doing here is AM. You'd have x and x. Your signs will be the same because this is positive, and they will be negative. So I'm going to have negative, negative. Now you need to find the factors of 8,000 that add to 180. What that is 180. So I'm going to split this down the middle and get two values for x. X equals 100 and x equals 80. That will go on my number line because it's an inequality, so I need to know the possible values of x. I'll do closed circles because at least means greater than or equal to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to test a value in the middle to see if that is where I shade. If it's not, then I'll test other areas too. So I'm going to test x equals 90. I'm going to do that by plugging it into my original equation, which was negative 2x squared plus 360x is greater than or equal to 16,000. So I'm going to plug in 90 in for x to see if this statement is true. If it's true, then I can shade there. So this gives you 16,200, and that is greater than or equal to 16,000. So I can shade here, which means my possible value of x would be between 80 and 100. So I'll say 80 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 100 items. Okay, the only thing I'm going to state here also is that we can only pull only integers from that range because you can't have half an item or a decimal of an item. The next question says the directrix of a parabola 8 parentheses x minus 3 equals y plus 1 squared has the equation x equals 1. Find the coordinates of the focus of the parabola. Now, they tell you the directrix is x equals 1. So that means that on my graph, I have at 1 a vertical line at x equals 1. This also tells me that my parabola is opening up to the left or to the right, and I'm going to figure that out with the equation they gave me. Now, what's annoying about the equation they gave me is that it's in the wrong order, so what I'm going to do is just flip around the sides, making y plus 1 squared on the left and the 8x minus 3 on the right. This formula is y minus k squared equals positive 4a x minus h. This tells me my parabola is opening up to the right. Okay, my vertex is going to be 3 positive 3, comma, negative 1. Remember, it's opposite signs. This is the x-coordinate because it's next to the x, and this is the y-coordinate because it's next to the y. So I'm going to plot negative 3, positive 3. This is 1, 2, 3, and then negative 1. This is my vertex. I know it's opening up to the right. Now there's two ways to get your focus. The first way is to realize that this distance is 2. So your distance will be 2 on the other side of the vertex, giving your focus the point of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1. So my focus is at 5, negative 1. But you could also get your a value from the 8 here. The 8 would be equal to 4a, and divide by 4, so equal to 4a. If you divide by 4, you get that a value as well as 2. The next question says a study was done to compare the speed x in miles per hour, so we know this is x, and the mileage y in miles per gallon, so that's y, of an automobile. The results are shown in the table. So what you're going to do is make this data and put it into L1 and L2. L1 is usually x and L2 is y. When you enter that data in, now look at the next question. It says make a scatter plot of this data. And it says, does this data follow linear regression or quadratic regression, and how can you tell? When you create your scatter plot, you're going to go to the y equals, make sure the plot is on, then you're going to press zoom 9. And when you do that, you should see a scatter plot that looks something along the lines of this shape. And it says, does it follow linear or quadratic? And you would say quadratic, because my data form a parabolic arc. Okay. It says, what's the equation of your regression, and round your coefficients to the nearest thousandth. So because we picked quadratic, we're going to be filling in the equation y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Go to stat calc and press quad reg, which is choice, I believe choice 5. So you're going to now round to the nearest thousandth. If you round a to the nearest thousandths, you'll get negative 0.008 x squared plus 0.746x plus 13.469. The next question says, describe your correlation. With quadratic regression, to get the correlation, you look at r squared. And in this case, r squared is 0.973. So 0.973 is a very strong. It's a very strong correlation, very strong positive, meaning that your curve of best fit in this case is a very good correlation with the data given. So it says approximate the speed at which the mileage is the greatest. What you would do is put this equation into y1 and then press graph, and you'll see the curve go through the data points. You want to find the maximum here. We want approximate the speed, so I need to find my x value. To find your maximum, you're going to press second trace and click click maximum. So you press second trace and choose choice 4, and you're going to see a blinky dot on your screen. What you're going to do is the calculator will ask you left bound. So move that blinky dot to the left of your maximum, press enter. Then it's going to say right bound. Move your blinky dot to the right of your maximum, press enter. It doesn't have to be anywhere specific. And then it'll say guess on the bottom, press enter one more time, and you'll see that the x value at which your mileage is the greatest is happening at 46.625 miles per hour. The next question says, predict the mileage of the car when it's going 32 miles per hour. This is a speed, so it's an x value. All you have to do is plug that x value into the equation that you got at the beginning of the problem. So I'm going to replace all my x values with 32. Plus 13.469. When you plug that into your regular calculator screen, you will get an answer of 29.149 miles per gallon. The reason why I picked 3 decimal places for these two problems is because at the beginning of the problem they said round to the nearest thousand, so you usually want to follow suit. Then the next question says predict the speed of the car with a 26 mileage. So this tells you to find the speed. So we're looking for x right now. Y is equal to 26. So you're going to set 26 equal to your equation of negative 0.008 x squared plus 0.746x plus 13.469. Now from the beginning of the problem, you already have this in y1, so just put this one in y2. It doesn't matter which one's in which, but you do need them both in the y equals. When you press graph now, you'll see a picture that looks like this with two intersections. We're looking for the x values of these intersections. In order to get those x values, you will use your calculator again and press the second trace, but this time you're going to press intersect. What you're going to do is do two separate intersections. So the first one, you're going to bring your blinky dot to the first intersection and then just press enter 3 times, and you will get an x value of 21.977 miles per hour. Then to get your next intersection, you'll go to second trace again, press intersect, bring that blinky dot now to the right intersection, press enter 3 times again, and you'll get your final answer of 71.273 miles per hour. Okay, I hope this video helped. Come back to help if you have any other questions, and good luck.